Clint Black is 63 years old, and what's about to hit you isn't some loud scandal or dramatic collapse. It's something quieter, something that makes you rethink what fame really costs when you refuse to sell your soul. Most people think Clint Black disappeared. They remember the blast-off in 1989, Killin Time, and then they assume the story faded when country music changed and a new generation took over. But the truth is, Clint never left. He just made choices most stars don't have the courage to make. And those choices? They protected his integrity while slowly rewriting the shape of his career. Here's where the story gets weird, because it doesn't start in Texas the way people expect. February 1962, Long Branch, New Jersey. A baby is born who would later become one of country music's sharpest singer-songwriters. But he doesn't remember that place. His family moves back to Texas before he even turns one. And the place that actually raises him is Katy, outside Houston, where oil fields meet endless skies, where people work hard, speak plainly, and don't hand out compliments like candy. He's the youngest of four boys. Dad works construction, cranes, job sites, long days. Mom keeps the family stitched together. They don't have much money, but the house is packed with something richer: music. By 13, Clint teaches himself harmonica. By 14, he writes his first song. And the first time his father realizes the kid might actually be special, he doesn't even say it directly to Clint. He says it to someone else, because that's how families were then. If you were lucky, you overheard the praise. At 15, the guitar takes over his life. He plays guitar. Obsessed. Takes it everywhere: school, backyard, bathroom. Like he's afraid the dream will slip away if he sets it down. The Black brothers form a band, and their Saturdays become a neighborhood event. Country Sunday on Saturday afternoons. Up to 70 neighbors showing up with lawn chairs, kids running around, grills smoking, and Clint playing Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard covers while the adults drink beer and pretend it's just a good time. But Clint isn't pretending. He wins second place in a high school talent show, and people notice. Still, second place in Katy, Texas doesn't pay bills. And here's the part people don't like to romanticize. Clint drops out of high school to play full-time. He later finishes. But college? That was never the plan. The plan was music. And if you think the jump from high school dropout to superstar is quick, you don't know the music business. 6 years. 6 brutal years, from 1983 to 1988, where Clint works construction during the day, cuts bait for fishing boats, guides tourists along the Texas Gulf Coast, and at night, he plays smoky Houston clubs where drunk people talk through every song like he's wallpaper. Sometimes the owner pays him in beer and a small wad of cash if he feels generous. Clint described himself back then as painfully short, awkward, a loner, not popular with girls. Just a kid carrying a guitar case through a world that didn't care about his dreams. And the difference between dreamers and legends is simple. Clint doesn't stop. Not when nobody shows up. Not when money runs out. Not when everyone tells him to get real. He keeps writing, keeps playing, keeps dragging that dream forward one night at a time. Then, in one of those moments that feels like destiny, he meets guitarist Hayden Nicholas at a gig. They click instantly. Their first song together takes 20 minutes to write. 20 minutes. That's what it looks like when you find a person who speaks your creative language like it's your native tongue. Clint records a demo and gives it to a promoter named Sammy Alfano with one desperate instruction: make something happen. 2 days later, he's meeting Bill Ham, a manager known for spotting stars early. And Ham does something wild. He puts real skin in the game. He invests $1 million of his own money. Not a label's money, his money. In May 1988, Clint signs with RCA Records. He's 26 years old. After 6 years of nightclubs and bait buckets, it's finally happening. But here's the truth nobody tells you about overnight success. It's never overnight. It's years of waking up wondering if you're wasting your life. Years of people looking at you with pity when you say you're going to be a star. Years of doubt whispering in your ear every single night, until one day the world flips. May 2nd, 1989. Killin Time hits shelves. 10 songs. And every single one is written or co-written by Clint himself. That's the detail that made executives nervous. They wanted him to use Nashville's professional songwriting machine, the safe formulas, the proven hitmakers, the industry pipeline. Clint refused. He didn't want to spend his life looking for songs. He wanted to be self-sufficient. He wanted his own words, his own truth, his own fingerprints on every track. Then the first single drops, A Better Man. Radio adds it cautiously, like they're testing a new ingredient. And then something happens nobody predicts. The song explodes. It climbs the charts like a rocket. By July 8th, 1989, it hits #1. And suddenly, the kid who was playing to drunk conversations in Houston is standing at the top of country music, without playing the game the way the industry demanded. But that same stubborn integrity that made him famous is the exact thing that will later cost him more than anyone expected. Because when you refuse to bend, the business doesn't applaud forever. It waits, and it charges you. Because once Killin Time proved Clint Black wasn't a fluke, the industry decided it wanted more control over him. Awards start piling up fast. 9 months earlier, he'd been cutting bait. Now, he's winning the CMA Horizon Award. Then the ACM's 4 trophies in one night. Best New Male Vocalist, Male Vocalist of the Year, Single of the Year, Album of the Year. People magazine names him one of the 50 most beautiful people in the world. He's inducted into the Grand Ole Opry. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame follows not long after. From the outside, it looks unstoppable. But behind closed doors, executives are uneasy. Because Clint isn't just successful, he's dangerous to the system. He writes his own songs. That means he keeps the publishing. And publishing is where the real money lives. Nashville doesn't like artists who don't share. They start pushing. Gently at first, then harder. Just cut a few outside songs. You'll sell more records. Everyone does it. Clint listens. And then he says no. Not loudly. Not arrogantly. Just firmly. And that's when comparisons start, especially with other stars from the legendary class of '89. The media frames it like a rivalry. Who will last longer? Who will sell more? Who will win? But Clint isn't trying to win that race. While others build empires, Clint is building a songbook, something that will still mean something when trends move on. And that choice quietly puts a target on his back. Then, at the height of his success, life interrupts fame in the most unexpected way. New Year's Eve, 1990. Houston. Clint is playing his first major hometown show. A victory lap. But he's sick. Fever, cold symptoms, voice barely holding together. Backstage is chaos. Industry people, old friends, family. Everyone wants a piece of him. And then one introduction changes everything. A blonde actress with striking blue eyes steps into the room. Clint has no idea who she is. He hasn't been watching TV. He doesn't know she starred on Knots Landing. He doesn't know about her albums or her Hollywood career. All he knows is this. Time slows down. Lisa Hartman later said it felt like a movie scene. Clint remembers thinking, I don't know who she is, but I want to see her again. 10 days later, she's there again. On the same night, Clint is inducted into the Grand Ole Opry. A CBS executive plays matchmaker and gives Clint her number, but only if he promises to call. He calls immediately. Their first real date happens during a Tonight Show taping. Within months, they know this isn't casual. By October 1991, just 10 months after meeting, they're married on Clint's farm in Katy, Texas. The same place where a kid once dreamed impossible dreams. In an industry where marriages collapse under pressure, they build something rare, real, intentional, durable. And that stability becomes the anchor Clint will need because the storm is coming. In 1992, Clint does something almost unheard of at his level. He sues his manager, the man who believed in him, the man who invested $1 million in him, the man who helped launch his career. The reason? Publishing royalties, contracts, control over the songs Clint wrote, his songs. Millions of dollars are at stake. The lawsuit drags on for months, freezing his momentum. His third album is delayed. While Clint is tied up in courtrooms, the industry moves on. Radio shifts. New sounds emerge. New stars rise. When the album finally releases, it sells well, but not like before. And Clint knows it. Something has changed. not his talent, not his work ethic. The system has decided he's difficult. And from that point on, the cost of refusing to bend becomes very real. But the most expensive decision of all hasn't happened yet. Because in 2001, Clint becomes a father, and holding his newborn daughter in his arms rewires everything he thought he wanted. The awards fade. The charts don't matter. All that matters is being there. So Clint does the unthinkable. He steps away. Not for weeks. Not for months. For 3 full years. No touring grind. No radio chase. No constant absence. He stays home. Changes diapers. Reads bedtime stories. Watches first steps. He knows exactly what he's giving up, and he chooses his daughter anyway. Later, he'll say it plainly. It wasn't a smart career move, but it was a real smart dad move. And that single sentence explains everything about Clint Black. Because when fame demanded sacrifice, he sacrificed fame. And once you understand that, the rest of his story hits a whole lot harder. And here's the part that separates Clint Black from almost everyone else in his generation. Because when he stepped away to be a father, he didn't just pause a career. He broke the rhythm of an industry that punishes absence. While Clint was home learning how to be present, learning his daughter's routines, her laugh, her needs, country music kept evolving without him. Radio shifted toward louder production, pop crossover hooks, younger faces. The business didn't wait. It never does. When Clint returned after those 3 years, the silence was different. Radio programmers who once played every single hesitated. Some passed altogether. Chart positions slipped. Album sales declined. The awards slowed. And just like that, Clint Black, the man who once dominated country music, was quietly reclassified. A legacy artist. That phrase sounds respectful, but in the industry, it's a warning label. It means you mattered. Past tense. Executives would later admit it openly. Stepping away at the height of his success cost him momentum he would never fully regain. And Clint knew it. He felt it in every polite rejection, every radio ad that never came, every conversation that ended with the formats changed. But here's the thing. He never regretted it. Not once. Because while the industry was moving on, something else was forming that would change him forever. Clint's niece, Courtney, his brother Kevin's daughter, was born with Rett syndrome, a rare, devastating neurological disorder that almost exclusively affects girls. Children develop normally, and then, slowly, everything they've gained begins to disappear. Speech, movement, independence. Trapped inside bodies that no longer respond. Courtney lived 16 years. 16 years of watching a family fight exhaustion, heartbreak, and fear every single day. And when she passed, something in Clint shifted permanently. This wasn't abstract suffering anymore. This was personal. This was family. Instead of turning away, Clint leaned in. He became deeply involved in Rett syndrome advocacy, not as a celebrity name on a letterhead, but as someone who showed up. Fundraisers, benefit concerts, private moments with families whose lives looked eerily familiar to what his brother had lived. And when Clint talks about these children, his words stop sounding like a musician's and start sounding like something else entirely. He calls them the divine among us. He says people instinctively look away from disability because it's painful to witness. But he forces himself to look because when you really see these families, you understand strength in a way fame can never teach you. That work never made headlines. It didn't boost record sales. But it revealed the core of who Clint Black actually is. Then came the reminder that even integrity doesn't make you immune to time. Decades of touring, standing for hours, carrying a guitar night after night. The body keeps score. In 2023, doctors order back surgery, serious surgery. The kind that ends careers if it goes wrong. Tours are postponed. Fans panic. Social media explodes with the question no one wants to ask out loud. Is this the end? Clint recovers at home with Lisa. Physical therapy, pain, patience, determination. Doctors tell him to take it slow. Clint pushes carefully but relentlessly. And by the fall, he's back on stage. Not diminished. Different. Older. Scarred. But still unmistakably Clint Black. His voice doesn't weaken. If anything, it deepens, richer, more textured, carrying the weight of decades lived honestly. Fans who see him live say the same thing. He still got it. And then something unexpected happens. The industry, the same one that once pressured him to compromise, finally looks back and says what it should have said years earlier. They honor him. Major honors. Career-defining recognition. Not for chasing trends. Not for selling the most records. But for songwriting. For longevity. For building a catalog that lasted when so many others burned fast and disappeared. Clint accepts the recognition with humility and humor. But when he speaks about what it means, he says something revealing. These awards validate everything I thought I was doing. Think about that. Everything he thought he was doing. For decades, he wasn't sure the world would ever agree with his choices. He just knew they felt right. Writing his own songs. Protecting his marriage. Choosing his daughter. Walking away when it mattered. Standing firm when it cost him. And now, at 63, the validation arrives. Not at the peak. Not when it was convenient. But when it finally mattered. Clint Black isn't a cautionary tale about what happens when you refuse to play the game. He's proof that there's another way to win. A way where success isn't measured only in charts or trophies, but in marriages that last, children who are proud, songs that endure, and a conscience that stays intact. That's what really happened to Clint Black. He didn't fade. He outlasted the noise. And the story doesn't end with survival. That's what makes it hit harder. Because most artists who pay the price Clint paid never get the quiet vindication that follows. They disappear into nostalgia tours, frozen in time, remembered only for what they used to be. Clint Black didn't. In his early 60s, an age when many performers are slowing down, he does the opposite. He keeps touring. 70-plus shows a year. 3-hour sets. No shortcuts. No backing tracks. Just a man, a guitar, and a voice shaped by decades of living exactly the way he said he would. Fans notice something different now. Not flashier. Not louder. Deeper. Every lyric carries history. Every pause feels intentional. Songs like A Better Man, Killin Time, when I said I don't feel like old hits anymore. They feel like chapters. Like memories he's letting the audience borrow for a few minutes. And then comes the moment that quietly confirms everything. His daughter steps onto the stage. Not as a novelty. Not as the kid of a famous singer. As an artist in her own right. Clint stands beside her, playing guitar, watching the very person he stepped away from fame to raise now, standing confidently in the spotlight. The circle closes in a way you can't script. The sacrifice becomes visible, tangible. This is what those 3 years bought him. Not headlines, not chart positions, but this moment. Later, when he's asked about his career, about the detours, the setbacks, the decisions that cost him momentum, his answer is disarmingly simple. I wanted to write my own songbook. I got to do that. Everything else is bonus. No bitterness. No resentment. No revisionist regret. That's the part most people miss. Clint Black didn't lose anything he valued. He traded what the industry told him mattered for what actually did. At 63, his body carries scars. Back surgery. Years of travel. The wear of standing on stages night after night. He cancels a show when he's sick now, and some fans complain. But those who understand don't see weakness. They see boundaries. They see a man who learned, early and often, that time is the only currency you never get back. That's why his philosophy still cuts so deep. He sang about time before he ever mastered it. He warned about wasting moments before most people were listening. And when the test came, when fame demanded full obedience, he chose differently. And here's the quiet truth that makes people emotional when they really think about it. The industry didn't break him. Success didn't hollow him out. And age didn't diminish him. If anything, it revealed him. At 63, Clint Black isn't a tragedy. He's a receipt. Proof that integrity has a cost. But also proof that it pays dividends the world can't measure. Long after the charts stop counting. Long after the tours end. Long after the lights go down. He didn't win by playing their game. He won by refusing to forget who he was playing for. And that's why, if this story doesn't move you at least a little, You're not paying attention. But here's the final layer people rarely talk about. Because the real victory in Clint Black's story isn't the awards, the late career recognition, or even the respect he eventually earned from an industry that once tried to mold him. It's peace. Most artists spend their later years haunted by the question, what if? What if I'd pushed harder? What if I hadn't stepped away? What if I played the game just a little more? Clint doesn't ask those questions. When he looks back, he doesn't see missed opportunities. He sees decisions honored. He sees a marriage that didn't collapse under fame. He sees a daughter who never had to wonder why her father wasn't around. He sees songs written in his own voice, not outsourced feelings wrapped in radio polish. He sees moments, ordinary, unrepeatable moments, that no chart position could replace. And that's why when people say it cost him millions, Clint doesn't flinch. Because money was never the scoreboard. At 63, his voice is still there. Not untouched by time, but improved by it. There's weight in it now. Experience. The sound of someone who lived the words before he ever sang them. When he performs, audiences don't just hear nostalgia. They hear conviction. And that's rare. Because most people spend their lives adjusting themselves to fit expectations. Clint did the opposite. He adjusted his expectations to fit his values. He knew the cost in advance. He accepted it, and he paid it willingly. That's why the late honors feel different. They aren't redemption arcs. They're acknowledgments. Quiet admissions from an industry saying, you were right to trust yourself. And maybe that's why his story hits so hard. Because deep down, everyone knows there's a version of their life where they choose differently, but don't. A moment where comfort wins over courage. Where approval wins over truth. Clint Black stood at those crossroads more than once. And each time, he chose the harder road. So when people ask, what happened to Clint Black at 63? The answer isn't tragedy. It isn't decline. It isn't fading away. What happened is this. He became living proof that success doesn't have to hollow you out. That integrity can survive pressure. That family can outrank fame. And that legacy isn't something you announce. It's something you live quietly over decades. At 63, Clint Black didn't lose the game. He outgrew it. And that's why his story doesn't make people cry because it's sad. It makes them cry because it's true. And that truth is what lingers after the music fades. Because when the lights go down and the applause stops, most careers end in silence, no matter how loud they once were. Clint Black's didn't. It settled into something rarer, meaning, he once said he's always written about time because he sees it as precious, because you never really know how much of it you have. That wasn't just a lyrical theme. It was a warning. And more importantly, it was a guide. When the industry pushed him to compromise, he chose time over money. When fame demanded his absence, he chose time with his family. When life presented suffering through illness, loss, and watching families battle impossible odds, he chose time spent showing up, not looking away. That's why his story feels different from the usual rise and fall arc. There is no collapse here. No bitter ending. No desperate comeback tour fueled by regret. Instead, there's alignment. The songs still matter. The marriage still holds. The daughter stands on stage beside him. And the industry, decades late, finally understands what it was watching all along. Clint Black didn't chase relevance. He outlasted it. At 63, he stands as something many artists never become. Not because they can't, but because they won't pay the price. He's a man who proved that integrity isn't naive. That stepping away doesn't always mean falling behind. That sometimes the bravest career move is knowing when not to make one. So if this story leaves you quiet for a moment, if it makes you think about the choices you've made, or the ones you're still avoiding, that's not an accident. That's the power of a life lived on purpose. Clint Black didn't win by being the loudest. He won by being consistent, by being present, by being true. Before we close this chapter, there's one last thing that needs to be said, because without it, Clint Black's story is still incomplete. People often talk about success as something you reach, a destination, a peak, a moment you arrive at, and then try desperately not to fall from. Clint Black never saw it that way. For him, success was always about alignment, whether the life you're living matches the person you believe yourself to be. And that's why, even now, at 63, there's no sense of panic in his voice, no rush to prove anything, no fear of being forgotten, because he already answered the only question that really matters. Did I live the way I said I would? When Clint looks back at the 6 years of obscurity, he doesn't see wasted time. He sees preparation. When he looks at the career momentum he lost by stepping away, he doesn't see damage. He sees intention. When he looks at the industry pressure, the lawsuits, the betrayals, the shifting radio landscape, he doesn't see injustice. He sees clarity. Those moments forced him to decide who he was going to be without applause. And he chose the same answer every time. That's why even now, he keeps working, not out of fear but out of love. Touring because he still enjoys it. Writing because he still has something to say. Showing up because presence has always mattered more to him than visibility. He once said that maybe 20 years from now, his first album might still matter. That was never a guarantee, just a hope. Now, more than 3 decades later, the answer is clear. It mattered. It still matters. But not just because of the songs. It matters because Clint Black showed what it looks like to stay whole in an industry that profits from breaking people into pieces. He proved you don't have to trade your values for longevity, that you don't have to abandon your family to be remembered, that you don't have to chase trends to leave a mark. And that's why his story doesn't feel like nostalgia. It feels like a mirror, because whether you're a musician, a parent, or just someone trying to make the right choices in a loud, demanding world, Clint Black's life asks the same quiet question. What are you willing to protect, even if it costs you? At 63, Clint Black didn't fade away. He didn't fall off. He didn't lose relevance. He arrived, slowly, deliberately, at a place most people never reach. A life where the music still plays, the family still stands, the conscience is intact, and the noise no longer decides your worth. That's not just a career. That's a legacy.